Hi everybody, welcome once again to Out of the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. I'm Robert Taylor, coming to you on WMTV5 from our studios at the beautiful Grosse Pointe War Memorial. And if you frequently view the show, you know we bring you guests who are exceptional in the metaphysical realm, the healing arts and the creative arts. And our guest today, I think you could describe as belonging to all three categories. She's the author of this great book, Spiritual Gifts of the 12 Astrological Signs, the great astrologer. Her name is Aluna Michaels. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. And astrologer by profession?
Yes, that is my full-time profession, and I have been doing just astrology since I've been about 23.
Wow.
My full-time work.
And you grew up in an astrological family?
Well, when I was 3 years old, my mother started to take astrology lessons. I grew up in Boston, where there's a concentration of famous astrologers from the 60s and 70s. Francis Secoyan, Robert Hand,
Oh, yeah.
Caroline Casey, Amy Shapiro, all them.
Yeah.
And so my mother would take lessons, and instead of having a babysitter, a lot of times I'd go along to the classes.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
I learned, and there were always books in the house, and so it's just been it's like being bilingual, I think, because I learned so early, because it is a whole other language.
And did your mother sort of look at your chart and say, oh, my goodness, I've got a little baby astrologer in my family?
Never, no.
She didn't say that?
No. I am an Aquarius, so very rebellious. And maybe when I was about 12, I just thought, this is a bunch of whatever. And came back around later in my teens to say, these things are holding true. And so rediscovered it on my own.
Now, you went off to Brown University.
I did.
Yeah, what did you study at Brown?
I studied religion. Yeah, I wanted to do psychology, but the program was more medical. So, and medical psychology.
Yeah.
I was more interested in counseling. I didn't think I'd be an astrologer for my living. I didn't know I could make enough and go along. But yes, I have a degree in religion, and then I went forward and have a degree in pastoral counseling, religious counseling from a theology school, a very liberal theology school. And I did that after I started my work. A lot of people just want basic astrology, but then there's really hard issues of abuse or grief and just intense things that come up that you can see in a chart in an instant and think, ooh, am I prepared to handle what this person's going through? So I wanted to get that counseling degree too. And it's nice to have a master's degree because then you don't seem as flaky when you're a healer.
Yeah.
People take it a little more seriously.
It's Aluna Michaels, M.A.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Aluna, maybe you could tell us your philosophy on astrology. How would you describe the astrology works? Well,
I started out, and astrology started out in the 60s and 70s more, I think, to prove itself. It was more concerned with predictive stuff and kind of narrow, and my mother kind of grew up that way in her astrology lessons. And then I moved more into depth psychology with, Jeff Green and Howard Sportis and those astrologers, and Jungian type work. And then that was very satisfying for me, like kind of evolutionary astrology. And then more recently I moved into what's called Esoteric Astrology, which Alice Bailey was the start of that, and Alan Oken, and there's other people now doing that work. And it's more about seeing the soul's plan in the chart, and not just basic things, but how you can use your relationships and life experiences and trauma even to become a stronger soul and become empowered and more God conscious.
Would you say that by looking at the astrological chart, which of course is the map of the macrocosm at the time of somebody's birth, that the individual is like a microcosmic replica of it?
Absolutely, and that's a special message to the person about how to move within limitations and expand those limitations. And I have two friends who are born the same day, same year as me. They're both guys. But it was real interesting because people say, oh, but what's up with that?
Yeah.
And they were born different times of day, but still we were very similar in certain ways and had similar experiences at certain times, but still unique. I've read for twins before, even triplets. And once I think I read for triplets, identical triplets and then one boy, so there were quadruplets, but
Wow.
and having the same energies, and how people, their own soul is still within that chart, and they're using the energy uniquely because of their soul history.
Yeah.
Even though it's starting with the same stuff, they're using the materials. Like if you were a chef and you had 5 different ingredients, I'd make something different from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think charts are like that.
There was a great story I read about, I don't know if it was Duke Ferdinand. It was some famous personality who was assassinated.
Mm.
And there was a person, he was like a king,
Mm-hmm.
Duke, and there was a person who was like a king, but he owned lots of restaurants. So he was like the king of the restaurant. He was born exactly the same time, the exact same town as the Duke. When the bullet, it was at a big event,
Yeah.
when the bullet hit the Duke, it ricocheted and it hit this head of the restaurant.
Wow.
And he died exactly.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, I've had an experience similar with one of those friends of mine.
Wow.
A major
So similar, you can almost follow similar events.
Yes, but it went differently for each of us. But yeah, it's always interesting how the universe is giving you the same stuff, but you're doing something slightly different. But that's an amazing, unique experience.
Well, you hear about, twins who are split up at birth, who are
Yes.
adopted, and then they reconnect,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about their lives and their likes and dislikes exactly the
Yes.
same.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very
Now,
fascinating.
of course, most people, they say, oh, yes, I'm a Pisces, I'm Aquarian,
Mm-hmm.
but we know as astrologers, when you look at the astrological chart, you have to look at all the planets.
Yes, it's always interesting to people. I always get the cynics. I think it's my personal karma. I've been so cynical about astrology, and I'm like, just sit down, I'll help you. But yeah, to see the chart is so complex that we count the sun and moon as planets in astrology plus Pluto. I don't know what that's all about with astronomers and Pluto right now, but when you deal with Pluto, you're dealing with something.
Yeah.
So
It's the common, we always say it's the cosmic garbage collection.
but it's also the planet of the greatest gift, so it's that recycling kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we basically have 10 planets, including the sun, the moon, and how all those planets interact is fascinating. And then we're dividing the sky into 12 portions, which we call houses, and that's based upon your time of birth. The planets are going to plunk down in different houses, and that's different. So it's layers of depth that go.
As with you and your two friends, because you're born at different times of the day, their planets will be in different houses.
Different houses, so they apply differently. But we still had lots in common with them. But it was still it was very interesting how we applied them in different areas. So
when you look at somebody's chart, you're looking at it's like a map of who they like a map of their karma. You could say.
It is a map of the karma, and it's interesting having a degree in counseling, but I'll counsel people who, like say I do marriage counseling sometimes, and I can look at the two charts, and it's like being an astrologer. It's like they might as well be sitting there naked with their whole life history in front of you. It's like, okay, boom, boom, this is what's going on. And they say, wow, we've gone to therapy for 6 months, and we're just getting to those things. I can see it in an instant. So, yeah,
it's incredible. In fact, I've often said on the show, you can do 3 or 4 months of therapy, or just go see an astrologer in one sitting by looking at those charts.
And that being said, I don't believe astrology is deterministic or fatalistic, but it's kind of like I don't know. There's sort of like a common energy that people will just, if you're on a little track, you're going to go on that track.
Yeah.
And so it's real clear with what's going on with people. But to do the session and illuminate them to how they can be using that energy differently, or even steps, like when I deal with marriage counseling, humbling steps that you can take